Hong Kong is not like the mainland, right? So why did you choose to come to China mainland? Why did you choose to come back to your roots, and why the mainland specifically and not Taiwan? Would you consider yourself as Latina? Why China? What was your process to get here? ¿Y alguna vez te imaginaste que ibas a terminar viviendo en China? Why are there so many foreigners moving to China? According to the National Bureau of Statistics, in 2010, there were less than 500,000 foreigners living in China. But in 10 years, the amount basically doubled, reaching almost 900,000 foreigners in the whole mainland. So today we're gonna hit the streets of Suzhou in order to find out why are these foreigners moving to China and what is it that they do here. So stick around because we have some really interesting stories, and remember to subscribe if you're interested in learning about China and the Chinese culture.
I'm Jenica. My ethnicity is actually Indian, but I was born and raised in Hong Kong, and I have a Hong Kong passport, so I do consider myself to be Chinese to an extent.
So in a way, you would be Chinese, right?
Yeah, and if people were to ask me about my identity, I would say I do connect with the Indian culture, but also I do connect with the Chinese culture because I spent my whole life there, and so I had a lot of Chinese friends. Growing up, I was eating in the Chinese restaurants. I enjoyed Chinese food just as much as I enjoy Indian food. So. Yeah,
but in a way, Hong Kong is not like the mainland, right? It's very different.
Very
different. In Hong Kong is not the same as in the mainland. So why did you choose to come to China mainland?
Yeah, I think that I wanted to also experience something a little bit different. Hong Kong is very intercultural, multicultural is what I meant, but just so many people from everywhere. So you can't really feel Chinese, like the Chinese culture so much. But when you come into China, it's where you really understand and realize what the culture is all about. You walk around in the streets, there's words in Chinese. In Hong Kong, everything is in English. I got around living in Hong Kong my whole life speaking English, and so I think I wanted to learn a bit more about the culture. It's also really expensive to live in Hong Kong, so most people, they stay with their families until they get married, and then they stay with their partners. Whereas in China, price-wise, it is much more affordable. You can stay on your own, and you can have that sort of independence as well. So I think that was something that was really important for me.
And were you, before, were you thinking about moving to China, or did you think about other places in the world?
Yeah.
What's the thing that you would actually said that made you choose to come to China instead of other parts?
One thing that really helped was that I didn't need visa. The Hong Kong passport is technically Chinese. I have a Chinese card that allows me to live in China without any visa. So that helped significantly with jobs. But also, secondly, I traveled here a year before and I experienced a life, and I was like, I can imagine myself living here. You have really beautiful vibe. You have a very mixed culture of people. You have a huge expat community here. I'd also known people that had lived here before, and they'd all been talking about Shanghai as being a really amazing place. So I was like, let's give it a shot. So I applied and I got a job really quick. And so for me, it was more just, okay, I got a job. I don't have to have a visa. I can move in quite seamlessly. And so I did it and been here since 4 years.
My name is Lily. I am Asian American, and I was born in Ohio, which is a state in America, and then I came to Shanghai about a little over 5-6 years ago.
And you told me that your parents are from Beijing?
My mother's from Beijing. My father's from actually a small city outside of Taipei.
Why did you choose to come back to your roots, and why the mainland specifically and not Taiwan?
Well, I actually went to Korea first for 2 years. I had a very close friend that I grew up with who passed away a couple years ago. And his big thing was he really wanted to push me outside of my comfort zone. I'm not someone who goes out of my comfort zone very much. And he was someone very important to me. And so when he passed away, one of his things that he had always harped on about was that I should leave America and see what else is out there. And so one of the big things that we had discussed was me moving to South Korea. So when he passed away, I felt like it was the way to honor him was to move to South Korea. So I did. And then after 2 years in South Korea, I had two things kind of happen simultaneously. The first one being I found out about the principal of my current school. She is incredible. She is so knowledgeable. I admire her. So I have so much respect for her. But I found out that she was opening up a kindergarten. So I was like, I need to get in on the ground floor.
Yeah.
And the other half of that is that I was going to get married.
But not anymore?
So I had a friend who was not interested in getting married, but knew he had to get married. And he was from a high person in society. So he had a very specific requirements as to what kind of wife he had to choose. And he felt like someone like me was a good option because
But you were not together.
we were not romantically together. But for him, I looked the part and I could act the part, and anything that I did that was a bit odd could be explained by my American heritage. And for me at that time, I was not really interested in romantic relationships, so I felt like it was just a good option. We were good friends.
So it was more of an arrangement,
It
like
was
not
just something,
romantic.
Yeah, like it was something where like he was great in a lot of ways, but I just wasn't romantically attached to him. But I didn't think that was a bad thing. I felt like that was something, my parents are not really romantic people themselves, so I felt like, okay, well, we work well together, we're good partners, so maybe that's the way to go. And so that is the reason why I moved to Shanghai.
Ah, so is he Chinese?
Yes.
Also ABC, CBC.
He is Shanghainese, born and kind of raised. He moved to America around high school, middle school, high school times. So he kind of grew in his formative years in America. So a bit similar to me, but in the kind of the reverse. Someone
Yeah.
who was born outside of the States, but kind of got a lot of his formative education in the States. So he's a lovely, lovely person.
Hola a todos, me llamo Celia Esquivel Salguero, soy de Guatemala.
Tú vienes de Guatemala y llevas aquí ya 12 años.
Sí.
¿Y alguna vez te imaginaste que ibas a terminar viviendo en China?
La verdad es que nunca me lo imaginé y antes de venir a China, como unos años antes, tenía un tío que estaba estudiando chino y yo decía en ese momento, pero ¿por qué está estudiando chino? Y de hecho él decía, es que me parece que el chino es súper interesante y cuando yo miraba los caracteres decía, Dios mío, ¿cómo hace para leer esto? ¿Cómo hace para estudiar esto? Ahora pues él lo toma como chiste, me dice, antes me decías que porque estaba estudiando chino y ahora vos sos profesional en chino, entonces es también como muy curioso.
¿Estudiaste chino?
Sí. Mi licenciatura es idioma y literatura china, entonces el chino es como mi carrera profesional.
¿Y es por eso que te mudaste a China o por qué fue que decidiste venir a China?
Me vine para China porque, bueno, mi esposo es chino desde Wuhan, se llama Sam, lo pueden ver también en mi canal, siempre aparece. Me mudé para China porque me casé con él, pero después de eso, después de llegar a China y no poder hablar ni siquiera decir ni hao, eso fue muy traumático para mí porque yo siempre he sido como muy independiente, entonces el hecho de tener que depender de alguien para hacer todo, eso me traumó mucho. El impacto que eso me dio a mí me hizo pensar, necesito estudiar chino, además porque en ese entonces tenía como muchas diferencias culturales con la familia de él y no tenía una manera de comprenderlos, entonces yo dije, considero que la manera es aprender chino, aprender su cultura y de esa manera poderme relacionar mejor con su familia.
Se podría decir que te viniste por amor a China.
Sí.
Oye, ¿y cómo fue que tú en Guatemala, porque no habías venido a China?
No.
Entonces, ¿cómo fue que conociste a un chino y terminaste viviendo por acá?
Mi esposo Sam estudió con mi primo en Alemania. Entonces, cuando ellos se graduaron en la universidad en Alemania, mi primo le ofreció como, vámonos a Guatemala a hacer negocios. Entonces, así fue como mi esposo, Sam, se fue para Guatemala. Luego, mi primo, pues, se casó y en la boda de mi primo conocí a Sam. Llevábamos tan solo 3 meses de ser novios cuando decidimos casarnos.
Wow. ¿Y la relación fue en Guatemala? O sea,
Sí,
los 3 meses en Guatemala.
Sí. Cuando realmente ya nos casamos, teníamos aproximadamente unos 6 meses de estar juntos y luego me vine a vivir con él para Chile.
O sea, se podría decir que fue amor a primera vista.
No creo yo en el amor a primera vista, pero sí diría que fue como una relación muy rápida. La verdad es que teníamos una comunicación como muy profunda y siempre estábamos en contacto, entonces nos conocimos como... Teníamos muy buena comunicación, creo yo.
Oye, entonces empezaron la relación, llevaban 3 meses de novios, ¿y quién fue el que propuso, vámonos para China? ¿Se le ocurrió a él o tú dijiste, estaría bien, me gustaría conocer? ¿Cómo fue?
De hecho, en ese entonces él me dio como algunas opciones de como los lugares donde podríamos vivir, pero yo dije, yo quiero vivir en China. Vamos a China. Y fue de esa manera que venimos acá. Pero el plan original no era quedarnos a vivir aquí para siempre. He sido yo la que nunca se ha querido ir, así como que no, a mí me encanta China y yo quiero estar en China.
Hi, I'm Simi and also YouTuber. I focus in tech and technology. And if you want to know my channel, please follow me in the link. He will put it anywhere.
Would you consider yourself as Latina?
Yeah, because I born in Brazil and then I been there until 17. But I have a Japanese background, so I can say maybe I'm not exactly like Brazilian people, but my heart is Brazilian.
Why China? What was your process to get here?
No, in fact, I was never planning to come to China. I was planning to go to Japan and stay 1 year there. But then I started to date Diego and we end up staying there for 7 years. Then we decided to go to Brazil, but somebody just sold us one fake figure. And when we were talking with him, arguing, oh my God, you steal my money, you cheat me, and you just sell fake stuffs. And then we found out that person was Brazilian. Then we found out that person was Brazilian Japanese living in Hong Kong, selling products in Japan. So we started to become friends because this was a little unusual. And then he said, oh, before you go to Brazil, why you don't come to Hong Kong and find out if here you like, make a visit in the city. And then we came just 1 week. Like 1 week we got scammed. The next week we came to Hong Kong. The next week we decided, okay, we cancel our flight to Brazil and we go to Hong Kong and we'll try our life there. Because we were with the container done. We also already sent a lot of stuff to Brazil. Our ticket flight to Brazil was already paid. But Diego just think, oh, many people will work in Japan, go back to Brazil, and they fail, they'll go back to Japan. Then Diego said, why we don't try another place?